Song for a Whale, Chapter 31, Part 1. It was our third day on the ship already, but it felt like I'd just left home. At the same time, the days somehow passed slowly. At lunch, I'd think of a conversation I had that morning, and it felt like it happened days ago. It wasn't going by slowly in a bad way, not dragging like on a school day where you'd swear someone had glued the hands of the clock into place. Each night, I wasn't ready for the day to end, even though it seemed it had started so long ago. I almost forgot why I was on the ship to meet Blue 55. Almost. Each day on the ship brought me closer to him. I didn't want to spend the day in the cabin, but I wasn't going to do anything until my stomach settled down. It churned every time I sat up. When Jojo came by to clean the room, I told her I wasn't feeling well. She picked up a notepad from the nightstand and wrote, "Back in a minute." When she returned, she propped the door open and handed me a cold can of pineapple juice. I slid the notepad across the nightstand while she made Grandma's bed. "Thanks. Guess I'm seasick." She took the bag from me and added, "Usually people don't get seasick when the sailing is this smooth." True, the boat hadn't been rocking at all. Whenever I looked out into the ocean, there was hardly a wave. I didn't know another explanation for how I felt, though. Jojo handed me a new page she'd written on. "I haven't seen my family for 6 months. Sometimes I miss them so much I feel sick. Maybe you're homesick." I'd always thought homesick meant you just missed being away from home and wanted to get back. I never knew it could actually make you feel sick. Maybe that was what was wrong with me. It wasn't just that I missed home. Mixed in with that was everything I was worried about, like how mad my parents must be, and whether or not I'd get to meet Blue 55. What if the sick feeling was my body trying to tell me that I shouldn't be here on this ship? If my plan didn't work, Blue 55 would swim through the ocean as lonely as always, and I'd go back home to face the trouble I was in, all for nothing. The feeling was much worse than the emptiness I felt in my stomach when I had to leave a radio sitting broken on the shelf. It was like an emptiness that was never going to go away. Of course, I couldn't tell Jojo any of that. I smiled and thanked her again for the juice. When I caught up with Benny later, she pulled the notebook from her pocket. She started carrying one like I did to write messages to me. She was picking up a little sign language too, so we communicated more and more with signs. She didn't pretend to know more than she did, and she didn't mind when I corrected her. She even laughed at her own mistakes, like when she signed Emperor instead of Tuesday. Some signs were pretty close, but just moving the hand the wrong way made a big difference in meaning. "Are you and your grandma getting off the ship in Juneau?" she asked. "Yeah, not sure what we'll do." That day would be the ship's first port stop. Some people would spend the day in Juneau and go sightseeing or on a small boat for a whale watch. We'd seen so many whales from the ship, but most passengers didn't have the view from the bridge like Benny and I had. "Think I'll look for some place with internet so I can check in with my parents." I'd been thinking about sending a message to my family. They had to be worried, even though Grandma said she was updating Mom to let her know we were okay. When I asked her what Mom had said, she just waved me off and told me she'll get over it. "Use the internet cafe here on the ship," Benny wrote. "I can log you on as our guest." "You can? Like, for free?" I didn't think Grandma would want to pay for internet time, but I hadn't thought about asking Benny to help me get online. "Sure, I'll show you how." That offer was too good to turn down. "Okay, great. Do you have something you can do too? I don't want you to be bored while I check my email and stuff." "Yeah, I'll watch shark videos." The cafe was like a coffee shop with a counter where people could order drinks and snacks. Some people sat at tables and chairs with their laptops. Mounted along each wall was a narrow table with desktop computers. Benny pointed at the cups of gelato behind a glass case near the counter and gave me a thumbs up. After we each got a dish, chocolate mint for her, red velvet for me, I sat at a computer near a window, all the way to the right. Starboard, I should say. Benny had taught me some ship vocabulary. The right side of the ship was the starboard side, and the left was port. The front was the bow and the back, the stern. But some signs on the walls pointed out the fore and aft parts of the ship, so I wasn't sure what the differences were. Benny pulled up a chair next to me and showed me how to log into the ship's Wi Fi, then opened the computer's notepad. The cruise line gives us some guest accounts, like for when my dad or a friend is visiting. You can use that login while you're here. Wow, thanks. First, I checked on Blue 55. The map on the sanctuary's website showed a dotted line, not the solid one I'd hoped to see. A guess of where he was. He still wasn't singing. He noticed that Benny was looking at the map too. I hadn't noticed that Benny was looking at the map too until she squeezed my hand. She turned her screen so I could see it and typed, "Sometimes I don't feel like talking to anyone either." Maybe he's like that. Since no one ever answered him back, I couldn't blame Blue 55 if he quit singing forever. I wish I could tell him how close I was and that I had a song for him. He couldn't give up just yet. Benny tapped my arm and signed, "Song?" Right. I told her I'd play Blue 55's song for her. I brought up the sound file from my email, then hit play. Benny's mouth dropped open like she couldn't believe what she was hearing. She turned to a man across the room and said, "Sorry," then hit the volume down button on the keyboard. She pointed at me like she was asking, "You did this?" I laughed at her, surprised. "Yes." "How?" I signed, "School," then pretended I was playing each instrument one by one. And I opened the tuner on my app phone, then turned the wheel to tuba and invited Benny to tap some of the notes. Hertz, read out of the corner, showed her how close the notes were to 55 hertz. "Cool," Benny signed. After trying out a few more instruments on the tuner, she clicked to a screen I hadn't used before and said something on the phone. Said something into the phone. A line graph rose and fell as she talked. This screen had a hertz readout too, showing the frequency of Benny's voice. Way too high for the whale, almost 200 hertz, but it was interesting to see. She held the phone in front of me, inviting me to talk into it. Me? Try it. I glanced around to see if anyone else was looking at us, then leaned toward the phone. I'd do something quiet. The wavy blue line appeared on the graph when I hummed, and then skipped higher when I giggled. Benny and I took turns humming into the phone to see what the graph and hertz readout would do. If I hummed deeply enough to feel vibrations in my chest, I could make the frequency lower. Interesting. But it still wasn't going to get anywhere near 55 hertz, no matter what I did. That must have been what it was like for Blue 55. He knew what sound he needed to make, but just couldn't do it. I closed the app and typed a message to Benny. I wish I could make a sound like his. I'd add it to the song. Maybe that was what was bothering me about the song I'd made. All the notes that played at his frequency were made with instruments. Even though I'd added the sounds of other animals to it, there wasn't a living thing that sounded like him. Only Blue 55 himself. Benny signed, "Wait!" then pulled her own phone from her pocket. She opened an app that showed a picture of a microphone in the center of the screen and a sliding bar marked lower and higher on either side. Benny touched the microphone, then talked into the phone. She pointed to my phone and drew a check mark in the air, asking me to check what she'd just recorded. I opened the tuner app and held the phone side by side while Benny's recording played. 100 hertz, a lot lower than her real voice. The graph on my phone bounced as I laughed. "Can you make it lower?" Benny scrolled the bar on her voice modulator app until the readout on my screen told us we'd hit the magic number, 55. She held the phone toward me again and hit the record button. I hummed at the phone. Then we adjusted the recording until it would sound like something Blue 55 might recognize. Benny said she'd email the sound files to me so I could add them to the song. I wasn't sure how I'd do that without my computer software, but I searched on my phone for audio editing apps and found a free one that looked good. I'd be able to load the song onto it and then the slide in the files from Benny. I slid the keyboard back to me and typed, "Can you show me that tracker your mom had for Blue 55?" She held out her hand, then added the tracker for me after I gave her my phone. She'd be able to check. I'd be able to check on 55's progress without having to get on a computer. Time to check email. I held my breath as I signed in. Just as I thought, the screen was full of unread messages. Besides my parents and Tristan and Wendell, they had emailed me. I scrolled down to the first one, sent the day I left. Let me know where you get where you're let me know when you get where you're going. And 2 days later, did you get there? Where are you going to look for the whale? I'm getting worried. For me, the days were flying by, but they had me crawling for everyone back home. I couldn't believe I hadn't thought of that. I was almost too embarrassed to answer Wendell. Wendell, sorry I didn't get in touch with you before, but I haven't had internet service. I'm okay. After I find the whale, I'll tell you all about him. The messages from my family were about the same, wanting me to let them know where I was and if I was all right. Mom added, "Grandma says you'll be gone a few days. Is that true? How are you going to make up all the work you're missing at school? I'll go I'll go by there and pick up your books, but I'd like to know what to tell them. Don't worry about being in trouble. I'm sure this was your grandmother's idea. It's the kind of thing she'd do." I could leave it at that and let Grandma take the blame. Maybe I wouldn't be grounded for life after we got back. Mom, everything's okay. I'll catch up on my work when I get back. Please don't worry. I'm having a great time with Grandma. Yes, it'll be a few days before we get back. Sorry for taking off like we did without telling you first. I guess it's the kind of thing I'd do too, because it wasn't Grandma's idea. Please don't be mad at her. Love, Iris.